The Force of Others, a Star Wars podcast.
I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold. This is the way.
Hello there, and welcome to The Force of Others. I'm Zachary Owen Turner.
I'm Matt Beutner.
And welcome back. Sorry, hair. There we go. Getting headphones on. Welcome back. Thank you for indulging me in my silly little moment. We're back for another episode. We are episode 16 now. More than just a habit. We have a nice big episode talking about 5 years of streaming, live action streaming from Disney. Love it or hate it, we've had 5 years, and that's a lot of content. We're going to go through our top fives later. We got a little bit of news coming out of D23 Brazil. And if we have some time, we might do some mailbags. And we possibly also have a interview, depending on when we can record that. So, nice big episode for you. But before we get into all of that, Matt, how was your week? How was your Star Wars week?
I had a real good couple weeks. Last week we had to cut it short. We had to dive straight into the episode. We were pressed for time. But last week I traveled out to Arizona for my cousin's wedding. Shout out Kaylee and Rodney. It was a lovely weekend. And then pretty much outside of that, I've been real busy with work. But it was good to see the extended family. That was awesome. As for my Star Wars last 2 weeks, I am currently reading Mace Windu and the Glass Abyss. And by reading,
cool.
I mean listening to it. It's cool. Not really my favorite, but it's a little more sci-fi-y than Star Wars usually is. It feels more sci-fi than straight, like, fantasy myth. But other news that may be more relevant to fans of the podcast, I bought a PlayStation 5.
Oh!
I've been talking about for a while how I've been putting it off till Christmas, and then I realized that so my wife is going out of town for Thanksgiving and to go see her family, and my family is going out of town to see other extended family. I can't go out of town due to various reasons. I'm going to do Thanksgiving with some other friends, but I'm going to have a week or so where it's going to be me and the dog. And I was sitting here going, well, I'm not going to have much else to do, so let's buy that PlayStation 5. So we will see how quickly I can finish Star Wars Outlaws. Maybe the thing will be
I'm not
that I
done
will
with
try
it
to,
yet, so...
I was going to say, Zach's been playing for months now, but he is a completionist, and I am not. So.
Well, also, I have been very busy, so...
But you did also say that you like to play to where you
Yeah.
get, like, 100%. I am not that guy.
I do.
I will figure out the way that I want to essentially play the character, and then that will determine the choices.
Well,
that
and you
I
can,
make.
minor spoilers, but you can really choose depending on the factions, but also depending on, like, you get options against the Empire or against the Rebellion, or you can really kind of fiddle your way through it.
I'm going to figure out who my version of K-Vess is, and then we're going to dive in. And we'll see if I can finish it in like 3 days. Okay. Anywho, but enough about me. Let's get some about you. How was your real life week? How was your Star Wars week?
Yeah, it was some good weeks. Just went up to Boston to visit a friend. Stayed up there for the weekend, which was really great. Walked around, Fenway. Went to Newbury Comics. My partner got me, Star Wars wise, got me this little booklet that has. I should grab it, but it has every Star Wars poster ever published, but in like a little tiny booklet, so you can
That's
like flip through the
cool.
different years. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So did that. Saw a turkey, which was cool because Boston has turkeys. Had some good auditions this week. Star Wars found me at a gathering of friends and community. Because we've been doing a lot more of that just to create some safe spaces and gather and, really just connect with people in the time that we have right now. And talked like Star Wars with two people that one person I'd met many times, but another person I'd never met before. But the coolest thing, she might listen to this, I don't know. She's a fight choreographer and stunt coordinator. And guess who her frickin' mentor is?
Nick Gillard?
Almost. It's the guy who was who was Palpatine and was Dooku for all of the fights.
Cool.
When you see the behind the scenes with the guy with the ponytail, that's the person who taught her all of her stuff, and so on her resume she has like certified Jedi. And I was like, oh my god, I want to like geek out and ask you all the things, but I'm just meeting you for the first time, so I'll wait for the second time. But
it's okay.
Yeah.
I'll be shameless and I'll reach out. Hey, come on our Star Wars podcast.
No, I'll reach out. But
cool.
But yeah, it was really great. Great just to
That's awesome.
commune with others and yeah. So
Well, and real quick before we get into the podcast, speaking of communing with others and everything else, just to address from the jump, if you live stateside or near stateside, we had an election the last couple weeks, and lots of opinions all over the place. Generally speaking, this is a Star Wars podcast, but this is also a podcast about other people and connection with them and so on and so forth. Regardless of your reaction, not you, Zach, like just whoever's listening. That's why I'm looking at the camera. Regardless of how you feel about it, I think that we need to celebrate that we live in a democracy. And that, I mean, if it was not fair, then that's a different thing. But so far as we know, the majority rule took place. The people have decided what will take place. And I would, as we move into this new era and a new presidency and everything else, I would just remind you of the quote from Andor, freedom is a pure idea. And if at any point, regardless of what politician is doing it or what person in power is doing it, if you are witnessing people that you know having their freedoms infringed upon, that is objectively bad. And you should probably do something about it. So that's really what I would say, and that's probably what I'll say pretty much every time real world politics comes up, because really, in my opinion, that's all that matters. If you are doing what you feel like you need to do to make the world a better place, and if everybody did that with while also trying to listen instead of just talk, the world will always continue towards a better place. That sentence completely fell apart. I was like, man, I'm being profound, and then I'm Matt Beutnerd all over it. So anyway, the point is just listen to other people, be open to them, and let's work together to...
And that this is a safe space for all peoples. And
100%.
if you need someone safe to talk to, you can always reach out to us.
100%. The force of others, and not the force of us. Anyway, so... But into Star Wars news, the only other thing that has been going everywhere right now that I don't think you mentioned in the initial thing was that's apparently Simon Kinberg is making a new Star Wars trilogy. From the jump, I want to say that no Lucasfilm announcement has been made about this. So this is not an official announcement. But Deadline and The Hollywood Reporter and a bunch of other things have ran with this with different scoops, and so it's like, is it episodes 10 through 12? Is it not? Is Rey the Obi-Wan of the trilogy? Nobody knows anything. Everybody seems to know, but nobody knows anything. What we do know is that, reported by enough places that there's probably some truth to this, Simon Kinberg is making a Star Wars trilogy. So, Zach, what's your take on that?
So I don't know if I'm just cynical with Star Wars trilogy news, but I was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. Is it going to come after the Rian Johnson trilogy, or the Taika Waititi trilogy, or the Kevin Feige trilogy, or the other trilogy that was announced by that other filmmaker who's really great, or that other trilogy? Like, I feel like every couple of years we get news of a new trilogy, you know? So it's like, okay, cool. Like, I don't know. Fool me, it feels like The Boy Who Cried Wolf. You know, like, you're like, oh, great. Cool. But, that being said, Simon Kinberg has done some really great films that he's produced, and some films that I don't like. So it would be very interesting to see what he does with it. I love so many of his films, and then you look at a couple and you're like, oh, no. I don't know. I'm excited. I'll take more Star Wars, good, bad, or ugly. I'm here for it, you know. So yeah, let's see what X-Man has to do with with Star Wars.
Well, yeah. So the Simon Kinberg of it all. I mean, like you said, it bears mentioning that we don't know this is gonna happen.
Yeah.
Right. And this one.
I don't know. I don't know if that's super cynical of me, but just like I feel like every few months we get a new trilogy
That's
announcement.
not even cynical. Well, it's not even like we get movie announcements all the time that never take place. I will say, to be fair, this has never been announced or even mentioned, or at least, and it's only been around for like a week, all this news. But neither Lucasfilm nor Disney has commented on it, so it's not like it's an official announcement, right? And there's plenty of things that got officially announced that then vanished, but this is just something that's going everywhere. But let's pretend that it's going to happen. How do I feel about it? I feel that, like you said, Simon Kinberg is a mixed bag. Mm-hmm. What concerns me is that, again, from being outside all of these processes, it appears when he has more direct creative control, the movies tend to not be as good, in my opinion. So he's produced Logan, all the Deadpool movies, The Martian, and there's a also long list of things that he's produced that were very, very good. And
he's
to
worked
give him
with
credit,
Darth Vader before. He did Jumper.
Oh, right. Well, he wrote Jumper, which, in my opinion, the script is one of the weaker parts of that movie.
I like that movie. I like that movie a lot.
There's things in it that are cool. I will give you it. I will be open to a rewatch. We could start a not a Star Wars movie segment of the podcast. But so to give Simon Kinberg some Star Wars credit, he co-wrote. He was a creative on Star Wars Rebels from season 2 onward.
Yes, and
he co-wrote with Dave Twilight of the Apprentice, the season 2 finale, one of my favorite Star Wars things, and he co-wrote the finale of the show. Right. So he does have some Star Wars wins, but he also wrote the Josh Trank Fantastic Four huge piece of steaming dog one of the worst movies I've ever watched. He also wrote X-Men Apocalypse, which was bad. It began
it was okay.
My man. Apocalypse
better than Dark Phoenix, which he also wrote or produced.
Well, we're going to get there. Apocalypse grabbing the TV, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Learning." I was like, this is terrible. He didn't just produce. He wrote and directed Dark Phoenix. So that's the thing that really gives me pause, where it seems like as he has more creative freedom on his own, in my opinion, the movies get worse. I would love to be proven wrong. I would love for him to get a win.
He also wrote Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which is also great. You know?
Yeah. He's got some kind of ties to those rights because he was involved in... You're talking about the Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie one, right? Mm-hmm. He also wrote a made-for-TV one, and then he was heavily involved in the Donald Glover one that just came out this year.
Which is
that
fantastic.
I have not seen.
Oh, it's so good. Cool. Highly recommend.
Cool. But all that to say...
Again, mixed bag with this guy, you know.
Major mixed bag. But let's take this with some grains of salt. Dave Filoni and him have had a close working relationship on Rebels, and with Dave as chief creative officer, they're not going to bring him on unless Dave has faith in him. Yeah. But were you about to say things? I got one more kind of other topic on this. Well, okay, so that's the Simon Kinberg thing. Then something came out from the Hollywood Reporter yesterday that apparently, supposedly, multiple Rey Skywalker films are in development simultaneously right now. And that lit the internet on fire last night. At the time of recording, it's November 13th. Yeah. But that was a wild time. But I've got a quote here. That basically, the Hollywood Reporter is kind of painting the picture that there is a race for Rey at the studio, as multiple filmmakers are attempting to create films focusing on or featuring the character. And supposedly, Kinberg's trilogy and New Jedi Order are on a collision course, as they are separate things right now, both planning to feature Rey. Hollywood Reporter speculated that Lucasfilm were open to Kinberg's story pitch due to issues with writers on the New Jedi Order. Adding that it is a search currently on for Stephen Knight's replacement, and it is unclear when that flick will be ready to film. apparently, according to this Hollywood Reporter report, there is internal deliberation going on at Lucasfilm as to what to do next with their, quote, heir to Skywalker, unquote, and that the character is seen as, quote, the most cinematic asset, in some ways maybe the only one Star Wars has right now. Now, all of this is alleged, all of this is rumors, all of this is, quote, unquote, sources within Lucasfilm, but what are your thoughts on that, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, is Daisy Ridley an absolute asset? Yes. Is the opening of that door to future movies with her something that I think they need to be in development, especially because she wants to come back? 100%. Is she the only cinematic asset? No, I disagree. I mean, Grogu, right here, hello. Grogu and Mando. You got Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka. You could do an Ahsoka film or trilogy. You could do I mean, you have the Thrawn movie that's hopefully going to happen, and there's other assets. I thought that was weird that it says, maybe the only one. But yeah, no, I think it's not necessarily a bad thing that they're like, hey, like this movie that we're trying to get off the ground is, there was a rumor that Rey was supposed to be 60 years old in one of the ones.
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
Yeah, and it's like, why have Daisy put on a bunch of makeup when, like you said last week, you can just continue her story and like actually see the development of a Jedi Order or whatever it's going to be. Also, if you're smart and you're about to have your Dawn of the Jedi, you parallel some of that stuff. Because it's like poetry. It rhymes. But yeah, no, I don't think it's a bad thing to be like, hey, cool, like, hey, we're going to bring in a couple of writers. Whoever writes the best movie wins. And that's what we're going to move forward with. It's not about what we want to do. Yes, it's about what they want to do, but it's like, hey, whoever can actually give us a full, complete, good idea and write it well and it will actually do well wins. I don't think that's bad.
Yeah. I mean, anytime it's like sources within Lucasfilm, as the quote, there was a story that was going around a couple months ago that Lucasfilm was very, very concerned about Skeleton Crew. Yeah. And then the trailers are coming out. Star Wars trailers are always good, I should say.
Yeah.
Because it's always visually stimulating, and Star Wars has cool music cues you can draw from. That makes for a good trailer. But the Skeleton Crew looks great. So who knows, man? Who knows either way? I would love all of this. I don't want Daisy. I want all of them to happen, to be perfectly honest with you. I would think it would be super cool if there was a Rey Skywalker like solo movie. And then if that kickstarted a new trilogy.
Yeah.
After that, Now I don't want Daisy Ridley's whole career to be Rey, right? But that could be where it's going. What would be your thoughts if it is true that this trilogy is episodes 10, 11, and 12?
I think you got to get a lot more people on board to come back.
Okay.
Because there are certain people. I think John Boyega has been like, I don't know if I want to come back. Because he got dealt dirty. By the changing directors and the changing writers and all of that. But like a story without Finn, as integral as he was to the first or the sequel trilogy, doesn't make sense to me to have him just like, probably mentioned off screen if he doesn't want to come back, Yeah. Especially when they were setting up that he might be force sensitive.
Well, I mean, it wasn't a setup. He's force sensitive.
Yeah.
There's been concept art that has come out, and there's been behind the scenes photos that have come out, and things that lead me to believe that originally Finn got a lightsaber. Yeah. And I think that was shot, and I think he was leading the charge on the Star Destroyer with a lightsaber. Mm-hmm. And there's all kinds of speculation as to why that changed, and not all of it is pretty, and that's what I will say.
Yeah.
But yes, all that to say, he got dealt a dirty hand. But the co-writer Chris Terrio said that some quote about like we felt it was a better choice to imply that Finn is force sensitive without showing it, because like he senses Rey's death.
Yeah,
he senses Rey's death. He uses the force to, for whatever reason, figure out where the signal is coming from for all the ships. So he's got the force. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, and then Oscar Isaac has become a huge star since. So it's like he truly is your Harrison Ford. You know, he's the one that really blew up. Was already big kind of before. I guess Harrison Ford wasn't kind of big before, but you know, he's the one that kind of is really doing excellent work. I got to see him on Broadway last year.
Cool.
He's excellent. He's excellent in everything, you know. And he has one of those faces where you're like, okay, you can either be 25 or 55. You know, let's put some gray in his beard. Let's make him 60, you know. So I just looked it up. He's 45 now. So it's like, yeah, like you kind of got to get them on board and like cooking if you're going to make another trilogy.
Well, and I will say, originally, around the time of Rise of Skywalker, Oscar Isaacs had a quote where he was just like, "You can't Disney Plus me. I'm not coming back." Then he went on to do Moon Knight, so it's like, okay. But then, and he's gone on to do Dune and other stuff. But then there was a quote more recently that he was like, "Yeah, I'd be open to it." I mean, you know, you never know when. What he say? Something like, "If like, yeah, if I ever want a second house or to build something onto my home, then like sure, I'll do another one of these things." But then there was recently he was more open to it. And initially John Boyega, I mean, the quotes came out where he was a fan of JJ in the first one and the last one. It was Rian Johnson that he did not vibe with like at all. And it shocked me because that went against kind of the typical narrative. But the quote was, "You can't get mad at JJ just because he tried to come back and save what you messed up." And it's like, whoa. So, but more recently, he has been open to it. Obviously, Daisy Ridley's in the bag.
Yeah.
For her to be publicly talking about it and stuff. I don't know. If it was 10, 11, 12, I'm going to be honest, I don't like that.
Really?
You created, with 3 trilogies, a beginning, a middle, and end. You christened it the Skywalker Saga. Mm-hmm. Let that end. The episodes are done. Do a new thing. Yeah. You don't have to give it episode titles, right? But to say Star Wars Episode 10, it hits me as weird. It'll probably happen, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Or you just go A New Jedi Order, Episode 1. Or, no, you got to go Episode 4.
My God, can you imagine? But to me, I think if you're going to name it the Skywalker Saga and then have the last one be redefining what a Skywalker is, right? Yeah. Let that be its own thing. You dude? My gosh. You know? Anyway. I would like to tell you that I'd be more with it if we recorded in the evening, but that's not the case. You can listen to the Acting Up with GTC podcast to hear me have just as many brain farts. But all right, you got anything else on that?
Yeah, no, like if it is 10, 11, 12, my one big question is, what's your villain? If the Sith are gone, are you finally going to get the Grisk or the what is it? The
Yuuzhan Vong.
The Yuuzhan Vong, yeah. I always want to say Vuluzan for some reason. But
I mean, you could do Yuuzhan Vong. It'd be tough. The biggest thing is that they are anti-Force. Yeah. The Force just doesn't happen to them. They're outside of it. So that would be something that would probably go away.
Yeah.
I don't know. You would need to have a story reason justifying whoever the villain is. Like the... weird to say now, the original 3 Star Wars trilogies are essentially about anti-authoritarianism, anti-fascism and stuff, right? So I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. You know, I would hope that it is something new and it's not the First Order again.
Oh, if it's the First Order again, I'm going to be pissed.
I mean, I will be mad for a day, and then I'll be like, hey, man, more Star Wars, and it's going to be some kid's first thing. Yeah. It's going to be a lot of people's first one, because, anyway, either way.
It's been a while. Yeah.
It's been a hot minute.
Yep. All right. Well, moving on to, unless you have anything else.
Nah, that's it. We did it.
Moving on to the next news item. D23 Brazil happened, and we got some news. Not a ton of news, but we got some news. We got a release date for Andor Season 2, which I know Matt is not a huge fan of, but I'll give a woo! It is a belated birthday present to me, coming out April 22nd, 2025. And we got a new Andor logo. Which, looks very Star Warsy. Cool. The O being cut out, it makes me wonder what, like if that's just a visual thing or if it's like a, zero or I don't know. I don't know what they could do. But one of the coolest things that I thought is they brought out B2. Or is that what the nickname for it? B2EMO.
Yeah. B2 emo or something.
Yeah. And he is like fully functional and moves around and took picture with fans, and man, I do love that little droid. The other things that we got from it, we got the Mandalorian creators, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, did a video message from the set of The Mandalorian and Grogu, which means that they are indeed filming. The next Star Wars feature film currently in production, alongside a sizzle that captured the heart of the journey so far and gave fans a look at moments from the theatrical release, including Grogu and Din Djarin facing off with snowtroopers, a massive Imperial AT-AT walkers in the snow, and Zeborelios in action, and Grogu traveling with Too Tiny and Zellens, which is the Babu Frick, if you do not remember what that alien is. And that comes out in May 22nd, 2026. Anything else that you... Oh, and then I think we also got this week a little Disney Plus 2025 thing that had some very small little snippets of Star Wars in it. That honestly I did. Sorry, I just remembered the other big news. Alan Tudyk is coming back as K2.
Yeah,
that was the other big thing that was announced.
Well, we've known that. I think
right,
it was
but it's been so long that I think it was kind of in question. Yeah. But he's on set, and we got pictures.
Yes, we did. Then the other thing that they talked about that a lot of places were saying was news, and it's not. Tony Gilroy has been talking about this for like years. That there were originally going to be multiple seasons of Andor, and he took it down to 2.
Yes.
And he said instead of each one being an individual season, there's going to be 3 arcs, each one covering about a year, all the way walking right up to Rogue One.
So it's going to be 3 episodes arcs, and each one is taking a year per 3 episodes, and it will be 12 episodes long. Yeah. So.
Yes.
One of the longer Star Wars projects. So.
Yeah. It, Zach said earlier, I have my Andor feelings. It's just, it is a very, very well-made show that it's a little slow of a burn for me. There was a Tony Gilroy quote that came out recently where I was like, yes, and then he went too far, where he was talking about how, the cool thing about my show is that, we're going, is what it's about, and that Star Wars has always been about anti-fascism and blah, blah, blah. But the thing about my show is that we do it way more accurately than all the other Star Wars stuff. And it's like, right. Which drives me nuts when everybody's like, this is the best Star Wars thing ever. It's like, it's... Okay, it's different. It's intentionally different than everything else in the franchise because he doesn't like the franchise. So, rant over. But that's what bugs me about it. It's just, anyway. But we will rewatch season 1, and I will. I'm sure I'm annoying everybody right now because everybody loves that show, and I understand why. But I will rewatch season 1, and I will come at it with as open a mind as I can have. And if I still it's not for me, I'll still watch season 2, and then I'll make fun of it because B2 Emo, the droid's name. Yeah. My biggest Andor critique. It's B2 Emo. Yeah. All right. Anyway,
that'll be good for TikTok.
So the teaser that came out just showed a couple just literal shots, actual basically stills from Andor. You saw K2SO, you saw Cassian getting into some type of prototype TIE fighter.
Yeah. You saw
and
Cassian in a lot of different cool jackets.
Yeah, yeah. Dude's got a lot of outfits. And then the thing that everybody's running with, there was a shot of squads of stormtroopers walking towards a crowd of civilians. People are running with very irresponsible speculation that is going to be a depiction of something called the Gorman Massacre, which was an event in the EU and in canon as well. And it basically is the straw that broke Mon Mothma's back, where she was like, "Okay, I'm done. I can't be civil anymore. I'm going to go start a rebellion." And it's what leads to her escaping, getting picked up by the rebels on Star Wars Rebels, and making her broadcast. So that would make sense to me, because Mon Mothma being a central character on this show, it wouldn't really make sense for you to do a Andor depiction of the Rebels crew. But it would make sense to have an Andor depiction of the Gorman Massacre. So,
well, you could bring in Mary Elizabeth Winstead and just show, or honestly, you just need Chopper. Yeah, that
could work. That would be enough. But as much as I gripe about the grittiness, not even dirt under your fingernails, blood and depression under your fingernails of Andor, as much as I get grumpy about that, I would rather it not mix stylistically with Rebels. And Zeb shows up and he's depressed. So anyway, but I am stoked for you to have your early birthday present of April. A lot of people were talking about how I thought
it was going to come out on May 4th.
I think it was originally slated to come out in May, and they were like, "Nah, man, we're done. Get it out there."
Yeah, because I was looking at the calendar, and it will be going while May 4th happens, but it will not premiere on a May 4th. An episode won't happen on a May 4th,
They haven't really made a lot of an effort to capitalize on particular dates. Like, originally, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show was going to come out on... It was something like the 45th anniversary of the original Star Wars film or something like that. It was an anniversary of the original film, and they changed it. The dates don't matter to the corporate pencil pushers. They're going to release it when it's done. You look like you're looking up something.
I did. I had a theory, but it's not founded. So.
Well, now I'm curious as to what the theory was.
It will come into play when we do our top 5.
Okay, cool. Alrighty. So I think that's everything we had about D23 Brazil.
Yeah.
And let's move on to a Star Wars canon contradiction, a new one. With the release of the Star Wars Encyclopedia, the comprehensive guide to everything you need to know. We talked about this back on episode 2 that it was coming out. We have an official name change of the Inquisitor from Ahsoka. In the Ahsoka novel, he is known as the Sixth Brother. And the Sixth Brother has appeared in other canon things that kept it consistent, that he gets taken out by Ahsoka. And nope, he is now named the First Brother.
Because they changed his mask.
Well, yeah, not even. It was just, it was unclear if it was the same Inquisitor or not, and they just went, nah, this is the First Brother. Which that's also a name. There had not been anybody named First anything. And we all kind of assumed, okay, Grand Inquisitor. Nope. It's this guy. It's this guy with the bird mask. So, Zach, thoughts on this?
I mean, I really love that book. It's already been contradicted once, with
by the same Tales of the Jedi episode. Yeah.
With how she gets her, well, no, it's been contradicted. Oh, does she make them blue? No, she makes them white here. I was talking about in Clone Wars. Yeah. Because she gets blue lightsabers. So, that book, and in the book, she buries a green and yellow lightsaber, because, so it's already been contradicted, which means that it feels like, books are now B-level canon rather than A-level canon, which is annoying. But I also understand it. They wanted to maybe Dave had an idea for this cool mask, because the Inquisitor is sick looking. Like the dead bird mask is really cool. Taking away the sixth brother, which we've seen in the comics from the Darth Vader comics, we've seen in other comics, and making it this guy instead. I mean, when it came out, we were all like, wait, that's not the sixth brother, you know, when the Tales of the Jedi episode came out. So we were, but I'm not, it doesn't bother me too much, honestly, because he already looks different. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't seem like the same guy. The heart of the story is still there, that she, you know, purifies Inquisitor's red blades into white. She's still in the same town. She's still saving the people. It's almost just like you're hearing the story from a different person telling the story. It's like, it reminds me of like oral tradition, you know, you'd like hear the story of Bloody Mary from your friend at the campfire, and then you'd hear the story of Bloody Mary from your, you know, uncle, and they'd be two different versions. But the heart of it is that Bloody Mary, and I won't say the third one.
At some point on the podcast, we'll bring that joke back Halloween next year.
Right.
Zach says that the third time, and then we'll rope Kai into coming back on the show.
Right.
Playing Bloody Mary for a moment. Oh, no, I said it. Okay, anyway. So, you have to say it a third time. Okay, anyway. It's you crushed it. It's canon until it's not, kids. That is, we've talked about it before on the show, that Sam Witwer and Filoni had kind of a disagreement. I think about that. Yeah. About that Ahsoka's lightsabers were blue now in the Clone Wars finale when that show came back, and Filoni said that's good that there are minor differences. These are campfire tales. It's also that Filoni came up trained by George, and George never gave a crap about what the EU said. My Mandalorians are going to be pacifists. It's going to be political. They're not just warriors. It's going to be better. And Filoni was like, okay, I guess. So we're just going to ignore the Mandalorian novels and Republic Commando novels that are coming out right now? Yes, it doesn't matter. So I think it's the same thing here, where, it is frustrating that when Disney bought everything and when they wiped the expanded universe, we were all told, and have been told many times by Lucasfilm, that the story group and everything else, it was going to be one cohesive canon. They have kind of stopped saying that as things have started to change. There were things in the sequels that retconned other stuff, and then Filoni has done it a couple times. We talked about the Caleb Doom, how he survived Order 66. We talked about that, I think, the last time this got brought up, this exact line of comments. But it's the same thing here, and shots fired, with the exception of the character of Caden Learte from the Ahsoka novel, who I really, really liked, with the exception of her not showing up in the Tales of the Jedi episode.
Yeah.
I like everything that Tales of the Jedi episode does way better than the Ahsoka novel.
Really?
Just me personally, it's not even close. Bail Organa and Ahsoka meeting at Padme's funeral and having a conversation where they're saying what they mean about being open rebels without actually saying those words because stormtroopers are watching. That is so much better than R2-D2 stumbling across security footage of Ahsoka escaping a random Black Sun bounty hunter that is never mentioned before or after.
Yeah.
Right? That's better. I like the fight of this Inquisitor being so scary looking. He looks absolutely terrifying, and Ahsoka just murks him in no time at all. I think it's a more evocative version of the story for me. I like the Ahsoka novel. I didn't love it. I found it to be kind of meh. So
I think I have a different interpretation of the novel. Did you do the audiobook?
I did. Read by
Ashley. Ashley.
Oh, she was great.
Yeah.
I just thought the novel was kind of. I just thought it was kind of flat. We spent a lot of time on the farm planet.
Yeah.
Just kind of farming and whatever. It's a fine novel, but I think that exactly like you said, both stories are telling the same story.
Yeah.
They're just telling it slightly differently. Me personally, I prefer the Filoni version in this instance.
And I think you gotta kind of give the nod to Filoni. It is his character. Yes. You know, like, he did make her. He has written almost everything that she's been in. So, like, you know, he's like, yeah, similar. It almost happened that way, but this is how I saw it in my head, you know.
Well, and the story that the Ahsoka novel tells was like it was Filoni telling E.K. Johnston, this is what loosely I think happened.
Yeah.
Now go expand on that how you will, because he was busy making Rebels and doing whatever else, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's always been his story, right? And in a way, it's kind of cool that E.K. Johnston interpreted it one way and he interpreted it different. And like you said, different campfires.
Yeah.
Okay. But we're going to throw it to our interview with Spiky Tortoise, a.k.a. or actually known as Ian Wilkins. He is a Star Wars fan, an animator, and he made such a cool Dark Empire movie. It is animated in a very, very retro kind of 70s, 80s style. Looks straight out of TV shows that you would watch in that day. Not that I know, because I wasn't around in that day, but I have seen old shows. Either way, it's really, really cool. We love fan projects, and let's throw it to our interview with Spiky Tortoise. And here we are. The time has come. Let's give a nice, warm welcome from all corners of this galaxy to Mr. Ian Wilkins, a.k.a. Spiky Tortoise himself, the animator of the Dark Empire fan film I was talking about earlier on the show. If you have not seen that, hit pause, go watch that, and then come back, because you don't know what you're missing, and it's awesome. So welcome to the show, man. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. It's we're still a new thing, but every time I see anything that is any type of fan film or Star Wars creation that is that level of quality, that level of cool, it's someone I want to talk to. And I guess this podcast is an excuse for me to talk to you about it. But so before we even get into kind of our normal Star Wars interview template and stuff, I just have to ask, kind of what inspired you to make that movie?
Well, before I took all the parts and made it into the movie, the original plan, it was a long time ago now.
Yeah.
It was when I was still in university. I had a lot of free time still back then. I was studying animation, and I decided that I wanted to have a project of my own that I could just fiddle away at in my free time to learn more about animation, to improve myself. But the problem with making your own animated project that a lot of people run into is there's a ton of steps to it. If you want to make something, you need, if your characters talk, you need voice actors. If you want there to be music, you got to hire musicians. If you want to have this big sprawling story, you got to write out the whole script. You got to develop these characters. It's a lot of work, and to the people that do that, I massively respect that. I like to adapt stories. I like to work with a storyteller to make something real. So, writing's never been my strong suit. So when I was like, okay, I want to make something, but I'm not very good at writing, and I didn't really know anybody who, to collaborate with, I was reading through, some comic books I had, and I was like, this Dark Empire comic, because I have a pretty good, substantial comic book collection. And I was reading through my comics, I was going through my Star Wars stuff, and I was like, this Dark Empire comic's it's great. And a comic is kind of like a storyboard, essentially, which is one of the stages when you're making a movie, when you're making a show, anything, you need a storyboard. And then I kind of went online to see, this is so fun. It's been around since the 90s and stuff. I figured somebody out there's, done some kind of adaptation. And I found, two things. I found this pretty intense, rotoscope animation of, Luke fighting Palpatine. And I came across something else that someone had made that was also just a short moment from that fight. And I realized it was also the audio drama. And I was like, this is amazing. So not only does all the audio with all the voice acting and music and sound effects exist already, but there's also a storyboard. All of the pre-production phases, not all, but a good chunk of the pre-production was already done for me. And I was like, well, this is perfect. I have so much time. I'm in university, and so much of the groundwork is laid out. I took the comic, I cut it into a storyboard, I took the audio drama, put it underneath it, and I was like, all right, now I'm just going to start shot by shot, just animating these moments from the comic. And at the time, it was just for me. I wasn't posting it anywhere. I think I might have just barely invented my YouTube, started my YouTube channel and posted some university projects. And I was like, you know what, how about I just post some of this stuff online? And to my surprise, a lot of people were very interested in it. And so it all kind of went from there. But yeah, it was originally just I wanted some kind of an outlet to just make something, but I wanted to get right into production. I didn't want to have to write something, and this was a great way to just jump right in with something that I'm a big fan of. I've loved Star Wars since forever.
Right on. That's cool. I didn't think about that. How when it with something like Dark Empire, like you said, the script is done, the storyboarding is done, and because of the audio drama existing, the audio's done.
Yeah.
So it's just the animation. Well, that's pretty cool. So my next question: what made you decide on kind of that like retro 70s 80s style of animation for this?
Well, I've always really loved classic animation. Like the old Filmation cartoons. Like here in Canada, we had, for a long time, it doesn't exist anymore, sadly. But there was a TV channel called Teletoon Retro, and the whole channel
Cool.
was dedicated just to reruns of vintage cartoons. The newest being from the early '90s, basically, but a bulk of it was from the '60s, '70s, and '80s. And that was, frankly, what I grew up on.
Cool.
Funny enough, I didn't watch a lot of the current stuff growing up. I didn't really care for a lot of it. Like, a lot of those Disney Channel shows and things, they just didn't apply. Like, I don't know, I didn't care for them. But these old cartoons, like Inspector Gadget was like a favorite of mine. Original Transformers, loved all those shows. Like Star Wars Droids. Like, I grew up on that stuff. And I did watch some current stuff back then, and there was this one show called Ruby Gloom. Like it's from forever ago, and there's this skeleton guy, and he was like, "Hey, I want to become an animator." That one episode, and I was like, I loved animation. I was like, "Well, you can't just do it. It takes a studio." And then he showed that he could make take paper, draw characters, and then flip through it, and that would make something. I was like, I can do that, and I was like 8. And so that got me into I was already drawing a ton. I've always been drawing. And I realized that I could chain these drawings along, and with a camera and some paper, I could start making stuff. And I then found it was much easier to just take Legos and do stop motions and stuff. And I was very enamored with stop motion, making my Star Wars Legos do various little things for years until I improved my drawing, learned more programs and stuff. But yeah. I grew up on old cartoons, and I kind of never grew up in that way. I love the old stuff. It's the aesthetic that I've always been really drawn to.
That's cool. That was, I mean, it's what I think brought your fan film to my attention in the first place, was just that it was retro. I think I saw an article somewhere, I think years ago. Because we were posting the clips for a long time, right? Am I correct in that, or did I dream this?
Yeah, I might be wrong here. I'd have to double check, which it wouldn't be that hard. I just have to check the YouTube channel. But I think first I had an old Reddit account, long gone now. But where I posted some little moments from it, and it kind of popped off on there. I was like, I should probably put this on YouTube maybe. And I was just posting clips. And at the time I was very perfectionist. So I post a clip, and then I would once it's better, I delete the old clip. And so there's a bunch of videos that existed and don't anymore. But it basically still does, because I would then compile it all and post it later. But yeah, Dark Empire went through many iterations. I redid episode 1 3 times.
Yeah. Well, and that's the creative process. But what you said earlier with just watching that moment of an animator showing a kid how to animate.
Yeah.
Every creative person that I've encountered in my life has that moment where someone showed them, they're like, no, this is how you make that. And everyone that I know had that moment of, wait, it's that easy? Wow. And not to say that it doesn't take work, but just that means so much to people when they're shown, when they're given the gift of fire, I guess.
Yeah. No, I wholeheartedly agree. And I'd say that for animating, it was that one little moment from that old show. But what kind of got me into animating in the first place, because I've always loved filmmaking, and what really got me into I want to make movies, I want to tell stories visually. genuinely was my dad's original like Star Wars VHS tapes, where the first where you put it in. Like I don't know if you had those, but
Oh yeah, definitely.
well, then you remember that the first chunk of it before the movie even starts is just George Lucas talking about how they made it.
Yes.
And frankly, I watched the first chunk where he just shows how it was done so many more times than the actual thing that I wore out the VHS tape.
I did
Like,
the exact
all
same
three of
thing.
the original trilogy films had that at the start, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And that's really what got me into like filmmaking. At the time, I wanted to do visual effects, and I was a kid, so I thought they still did it like they did back then. You know, with the model making workshops and with like you know how it was like this magic. You know, like and a lot of incredible illusions to bring it to life. When I found out it was mostly computers and a lot of that stuff, it had less of that magic for me, like visual effects anyway. And I saw that, like, you know, not to diss anybody who loves modern visual effects, they are amazing. But it didn't have that same magic for me personally as what I'd seen in those clips. But for me, animation still retains that because I'm taking a drawing, which is innately a still thing, and by just making enough of them, they bounce into life. And I was like, okay, well, that'll always have that magic.
That's cool. I like that. No, on this show, we praise practical effects a lot. So, yeah, of course, not to take anything away from anybody that loves CGI and all that stuff, but I would agree when it's practical, you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't think about animation in that way. That's cool. I like that. Well, okay. So, we found out a little bit about you as an animator and about your animation journey. So let's find out about you as a Star Wars fan. This podcast is called The Force of Others, and the point of it is I want as many different perspectives as I can possibly get on this franchise that we all love, right? Everybody loves and hates, oftentimes, different things about Star Wars, and I like hearing everybody's perspectives. So to start it off, where were you when you first saw Star Wars, or what is your first Star Wars memory?
For me, I remember it pretty vividly. It's probably one of my earliest memories, frankly, because it really stuck with me because, well, it was just very memorable. But essentially, like, my dad had an office down in the basement when I was a little kid. And we had a TV upstairs. My dad had this little black and white TV, literally this big, that he'd have on his desk with with the VHS, thing underneath it, and I think we had like 2 VHS things in the house because, like, you know, early 2000s we had a lot of VHS. But he had his VHS thing hooked up to the little black and white TV, and I walk in and I see R2-D2 and C-3PO stepping out of the escape pod, walking in Tatooine in this little black and white TV, and I hear C-3PO moaning and groaning about it, and R2 beeping at him, and my dad's just kind of working away at his computer. And I'm like, oh, what's that? You know, what's this? I'd never seen this, and I don't remember. It was forever ago. I don't know how old I was, but frankly, I think I was like probably like 4 or 5. And he was like, "Oh, I haven't shown you this. Oh, we're gonna go watch something right now." And like popped it out, rewound it. We went upstairs, popped into the big TV, and my dad took the afternoon to watch the first Star Wars with me. And that's where, for me, the memory ends, and the rest would be fuzzy. I don't remember the rest too long ago, but I remember that moment of going into his office and seeing, like, the escape pod and R2 and C-3PO stepping out into the desert, and, like, the John Williams and score, and, like, I remember all that coming out of that crappy little TV, and just being, like, very curious as to what is this? I'd never seen this. And, And from there on, I've always been like a very big Star Wars fan. I remember when Episode 3, like, I was finally allowed to watch that because it was PG-13, and that was a very big deal in my household. So I was like, I don't remember, like I was not 13 yet. So to me, it was like, oh, I'm allowed to watch this, even though I'm not 13. It's PG-13. And then seeing like Anakin get horribly burned, I was like, oh my god.
You see why they earned that PG-13 rating when you
sure
get to that
did.
scene.
So, and like my mom didn't watch the movies, and my dad didn't want my mom to know I was watching that. So he was like, "You're not allowed to watch that when she's home," because if she saw her, like, I presume I was like 11 her like 11-year-old son watching this guy burning alive and shrieking and stuff. Like I think it would have been a little bit too much for my mom. But yeah, those I would say are two of my like very early Star Wars memories: the black and white TV and sneakily watching my DVD of Revenge of the Sith.
That's awesome. It's like I said, we haven't had this podcast very long, but I've already heard. I mean, I think basically everybody loosely our age has a very similar first memory of watching it on a very, very tiny little crummy TV in their house or something, and just like that moment of, wow, what is this? Just stuck with them. It points to just something about the visuals of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Just something about it. It hits the first time you see it. You know,
my dad held on to all of it. He was a huge Star Wars fan. Like he was one of the original batch, I guess you'd say. You know, in '77, he was watching that movie. That's and like he had the original run, like that early bird special and all that stuff. He got all the original figures, and he took good care of them. And they became my action figures after that movie, and I still have all of them.
That's awesome. Protect them with everything you have.
Oh yeah, I've got them like right over there.
Nice. That's cool.
Like his bootleg carrying case too. It says like Space Wars on it.
Oh, you've got that still as well?
Oh yeah. Like I'll pull it down.
I've got to see that if you don't mind. Protect these things.
Yeah, no worries.
But
I've got all of his original stuff. Like here it is, Star World.
Wow.
And
we love that.
And he played with them, you know. And
sure.
So as a result, and the capes were flimsy. So his mom, my grandmother, she went ahead and replaced them with leather so that they would be more long lasting.
That's cool. So you've got a custom group of figures there, man.
Oh yeah, and I got them all. I got the Tusken with his custom leather digs. And like he kept R2 in like impeccable condition, like you wouldn't believe.
Wow, that's awesome.
No, like my dad really cherished those toys, and I did too as a kid. He really instilled in me like, hey, these are yours now, but you better take care of these, or else I'll take them right back.
If you don't protect my toys, I will.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool.
Now, he had all the spaceships too, but my grandmother gave those away a long, long time ago.
It's the worst. When they give them away. You're like, well, you don't play with them anymore. I still want them. But okay.
Yeah.
So, if you had to pick one out of all the Star Wars heroes, who's your favorite hero?
That's a difficult question.
Yeah.
Like, because I, with my age, like, I grew up watching... Like to me, the prequels were the fresh movies and stuff. And so to me, I watched every Friday night the new episode of Clone Wars. And so Anakin was this a great character, super fun. But I also ever since I was a little kid, I loved R2-D2. R2-D2 is so great. So if I had to really pick one, I guess I have to go with R2.
That's awesome. I love R2-D2. I think he is borderline criminally underrated. So what makes R2 rise to the top for you?
I think that just how so much is done with so little, like the little mannerisms and the little beeps and the little so much character instilled in such a simple character. It's just so charming, and I think anyone anywhere can enjoy and find R2-D2 fun. And as a kid, it was my favorite little action figure. And one of my favorite memories growing up, I was probably 9 or something, I wanted more than anything in the world to get R2-D2, like a real one for Christmas, which, that's not possible. Except that year they released a voice-activated R2-D2 that's yay big, that to my little kid self is the equivalent of being life-sized. And I sobbed tears of joy when I got that on Christmas morning.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I still have it at my parents' house in the attic, basically, with the D batteries taken out of it so it'll stay good for my kid someday in the future anyway.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, all right. So the flip side of the coin, we got your favorite hero. Who's your favorite villain?
Oof. That's difficult. Sorry if it's a basic answer, but Darth Vader, man, he's the original classic villain. He walks on screen and immediately you know that this guy is the baddest of the bad. Like, and then once they fleshed out his whole story with Anakin and everything, like it just makes him such a tragic figure. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess it's technically the same answer as my favorite hero's answer. Like, it's Anakin and R2. It's Darth Vader.
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, there's a reason that Vader is iconic to this day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a reason that when he shows up in the trailer for Rogue One, everyone was freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably the most. It's funny. Probably the two most recognizable Star Wars characters out of the whole franchise are probably R2 and Vader.
Yeah, probably. You can see the impact of marketing.
Yeah. Well, just the impact of like iconic just visuals.
Of course.
Right? That's awesome. But okay, so we've got your favorites of like the top tier, right? Mm-hmm. Who is your favorite random alien or background character?
That is like I can't say that I've got like a hard one that like that is like that someone asked me that like I feel like that answer could change at any given moment depending on what I'm thinking about, but I guess right now I'd have to go with Max Rebo. Like, I don't know,
cool.
He's just a fun, goofy little elephant dude, and somehow makes a reappearance in Boba Fett. How he survived Jabba's sailing barge after how that thing turned into splinters is beyond me. I just picture his two little arms like shuffling like as fast as he can to jump off that thing in like some like action movie explosion. Like that's the story that we need to be shown.
Well, not that you take requests as an animator, but I would like to request that animated. That would be fantastic, and I would love to watch it. And then it will be my headcanon forever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, now I have this image of him like awkwardly, basically doggy paddling through the sand to get away from the explosion.
How else did he survive, huh?
But that's funny, and it's true. Not only did he somehow survive the sail barge explosion, he survived only to get apparently blown up again. On Book of Boba
Fett. He's perfectly fine. He's explosion-proof.
Maybe that's what it is. We'll find out.
That species of little blue elephant, they like the thermal detonation doesn't impact them.
They have fireproof skin. I love it. Headcanon for sure. Okay, so easy question, or I don't know, maybe an easy question. If you had a lightsaber, what color would it be?
I don't know. Like, I love the classics, blue or green, I guess. Like, I've got two, and the two that I've got my old one from when I was like 9, and that's Anakin's blue one or Luke's blue one. It's the model's Anakin's. But I've also got, I've got Luke's from Return of the Jedi, and that's the green one. So, I don't know. Some days that one's my favorite, some days this one's my favorite, but I've got them both so I don't have to pick.
There you go. Depends on the mood. Am I feeling like Empire Luke today, or Anakin, or am I feeling like Jedi Luke today? I love it. All right. So a goofy question, but sticking with kind of the theme of like Star Wars visuals that mean things to you and stuff. If you could have a Star Wars tattoo, what would it be?
I don't think I've ever thought about that in my life. I don't know, like, just in general, I'm not much of a tattoo guy, so, like, even on the question of a tattoo in general, it's like, I don't even know what the heck I'd get as a tattoo, period. But let's say, hypothetically, gun to my head, I need to have a Star Wars tattoo. I don't know, pretty basic, I guess, but I guess, like, the Rebel Alliance symbol somewhere. Somewhere not too wild, like I don't know, like my shoulder blade or something.
Yeah, and I like that. That's somebody else, I forget, one of our other interviews said they'd want the same thing, and they said they liked it because it's nerdy, but it takes some nerdy knowledge to know what it is you're looking at. Like someone would be like, it would take a real one to go, Rebel. You know what I mean?
And also, like, I feel like it can't be misconstrued as anything else. Like, I feel like if you get a bunch of Orabesh on you, like, there's some people that be like, oh, is that Chinese? Is that Japanese? You know? There's certain things that could be misconstrued, or, like, I don't know, I wouldn't get the Imperial flag on it. Like, someone might, like, the iconography of Star Wars is done in a specific way to give certain vibes.
Yeah.
Someone who doesn't know Star Wars and sees the Imperial flag might think it's just some kind of fascist symbol or something, which they wouldn't be entirely wrong.
Right.
And that's not exactly a vibe I'd want to give off. Even though it's like, no, it's a fictional thing. But no.
I promise it's not real.
Guys.
That's awesome. Alrighty. So, to kind of pivot just slightly into, not necessarily visuals, but just Star Wars in general, in universe or out of universe, what is your favorite Star Wars story?
Well, when you say stories, you mean like your favorite film?
Could be anything, like
Okay.
any story.
I would say that I've got like two top tier, like my two favorite Star Wars things.
Yeah.
I absolutely love Return of the Jedi. Like, it was my favorite film growing up. I wore out that VHS tape. Even though, as a filmmaker, I personally I believe that Empire is the better movie. I think it's a better film. I think the pacing is stronger. I think the acting is better. I think that the script is better. I think the effects are better. Like, it's just better in so many ways. But the nostalgia goggles in me is like, I absolutely love, Return of the Jedi. It's just, it's such a fun movie. And then and next to that, my more recent, like, I need more of this. I loved The Mandalorian. Great show, so much fun. For me, as far as recent Star Wars projects, in my opinion, I think it most well got what I love about Star Wars personally. Just like a fun adventure, like it's what I love about it anyhow. And and then the character of Din Djarin and Mando is just a very fun character and is dynamic with everyone he meets and that whole thing. The show, like, I've got friends who don't care for it. They think that the show's not not the most original in many respects, and I can't blame them. They're not entirely wrong. But since when was Star Wars, fully original? George just wanted to make Flash Gordon. He's been very clear about that. So, I don't know. Like, I can't pick between Mando and Return of the Jedi. They're up there for me.
I love it. Those are two strong choices. Well, and this is a bad podcast host. I didn't even think to mention to you that this episode, one of the things that me and my co-host are doing, this week is the 5th anniversary of The Mandalorian coming out.
Okay.
This is the 5th anniversary of Star Wars streaming. And so do you have an episode or two that kind of stick out above the rest for you of The Mandalorian? I know I'm putting you on the spot. Sorry, man.
No worries. Let's see. The first episode's very strong. Like the whole show, it's very strong. But let's see. Like, I'd say that was definitely up there. Our introduction to this character, like, our introduction to the child, seeing an IG unit properly in live action. That, for me, seeing that, I remember when that came on screen, like for me, like, and like, when Luke shows up, that was wild, but the nerd in me, like, I've seen Luke on screen. I've seen him. I've seen Luke on screen. You know what I haven't seen on screen? An IG unit actually kick ass outside of an animated show. And seeing them in the animated show, very cool, but I always thought, like, okay, but, like, I want to see how this looks in real life, Yeah. Like, they move so fluidly and so smoothly, and it looks great in animation, but there's some things in animation that you think wouldn't translate well to live action. Like, if it moved exactly like it did there, it would just look like some fake CGI thing, Yeah. Like kind of like how Terminators look in the new movies these days. Like, it's like, okay, but like the stop motion dude from the first movie was actually scary.
Yeah.
Like, even by the second movie, the liquid Terminator's cool, but he doesn't look real. Yeah. But anyway, that's besides the point. First episode where we see an IG actually kick ass was awesome, and the episode where, I like the episode with R5 going on an adventure with Din.
Oh, cool.
And, where they go on the planet and R5 is given, like, actual, stuff to do and is characterized. Because I feel as though, like, for instance, R5 was characterized wonderfully in Mando, but the handful of scenes where we get R2, he just kind of feels like he's just there. And that is definitely one of my small nitpicks of the series. I know he's far be it from the main character, but neither is R5. And R5 is so fun and quirky and has all the things that I like about R2-D2 in him, basically, except he's like Howard instead of brave like R2. But you can say those things about him because he's characterized. R2 just goes beep boop and then leads people places and doesn't actually have any personality in Mando, which is a shame.
It's one of my my nitpicks about, I don't want to say all of Disney canon, because I'm sure he's had moments that I can't remember right now. But generally speaking, R2-D2 hasn't gotten to do very much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I can't say he has. Like, I don't blame him not really being at all in the forefront in the sequel films. Those have a whole slew of issues and strengths here and there. But like R2 not really getting to do anything there, I'm fine with that. They got BB-8 for that. Yeah. If you're going to make such a big deal about bringing Luke back in Mando and doing Luke so well, because I believe they did him brilliantly. Although I personally think they could have just cast a guy that looked, enough like Luke, rather like the CGI face thing is impressive. It's impressive. But there are actors out there that look enough like, Mark Hamill. You don't have to jump through so many hoops. And the computer generated voice, computer generated face, it feels a little unnecessary. Like, a lot of love and thought was put into it, and I like that Mark Hamill was so, present to the process. But it just makes it feel like Star Wars can't bring back old characters without them being the old actors, and I think that's such an odd, crutch to lean on. Solo, a lot of people don't like that movie. I like that movie. And I believe that Alden Ehrenreich was a great Han Solo. I think he did a great job. I think it was extremely fun as a movie. And if Disney thinks it failed because he didn't look like a young Han Solo, like he didn't look like Harrison Ford, then they're wrong. I think they just didn't market that movie at all. My dad, who's a big Star Wars fan, always has been, only found out that Solo existed after I'd already gone to see it in theaters. That speaks to the lack of marketing for Solo.
Yeah. Well, and there was...
There was there was no posters, no nothing. You'd have to look and see, there, one of the million little posters, one of those is a Star Wars movie. Yeah. Then they pumped out too many too fast. It was a quality movie. It would have done better if people had more breathing room.
Yeah, I agree with all that, but it's worth mentioning. There was a quote from, it was either Kathleen Kennedy or Bob Iger. I don't want to get it wrong. But one of the two of them said that Solo taught them that recasting actors isn't necessarily the right move. And I was like, what? No, that's not. What are you talking about?
It's completely the wrong lesson. Yeah. There's so many fun Star Wars characters that, frankly, have gotten not that much to do. Like, Lando's a fun character. Guess what? Yeah. He does next to nothing in the original trilogy. He's there, but he does a few. He has his moments. But the characters that really get the meat and potatoes is like Luke, Han, Leia. Yeah. But and Lando, and casting. I remember his musician name. I'm forgetting his actual Donald Glover. Yeah. Casting him as Lando was really fun, and he did a great job. But to know, and they were going to do a Lando project, but it was like, oh, sorry, he doesn't look like Billy D. Williams, so that's why it failed. That's such a silly thing. It's like, no, you guys didn't market the movie at all, and you had just pumped out a Star Wars movie every year. Star Wars isn't Marvel. It's and to think every project can be treated like Marvel is a bad idea. And to think Marvel could be treated like Marvel forever was clearly a bad idea. Yeah. I like a lot of the new stuff that comes out, but people are exhausted. You gotta make them wait. Back when the original Marvel stuff was coming out, they weren't pumping out an Iron Man movie every year. They made you wait for it. Just because you got the might to make that much doesn't mean you necessarily should. It results in people feeling like it's cheap.
Yeah, and sometimes it does end up that way.
Yeah.
Now, I'm with you. I like a lot of the new stuff, but sometimes the speed at which it comes out can be a lot.
Yeah, but the visual effects, a lot of people talk about the crunch to get Marvel movies done. And that's why there's certain Marvel movies that have good stories, but in my opinion, god-awful VFX. A lot of people love Black Panther. I think the story's really fun with Black Panther. But folks, the Black Panther CGI is the worst in all Marvel films. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing worse. Like, everything looks like rubber. Everything looks terrible in that movie. The cinematography itself is fine, you know, but the minute he puts on the suit, he's like, okay, we're back to the 90s with CGI here. You know, like the big final fight of the whole movie is in a dark room on a train track, and I remember those visual effects artists talking about working on that, being like, what a nightmare it was to work on that sequence. And the Star Wars stuff has suffered from that too, like, you know, to a certain extent. The need to pump out so much so fast. Frankly, I'm glad that we're having a bit of a drought of content right now, because I think it gives people the time to sit back, breathe, and make some better stuff, you know? Like, and also to make people, you know, value it a little bit more. Because I think people get very entitled to, okay, give me more, give me more, give me more. Why is it not good anymore?
Yeah, exactly. I agree with all of that and more. Well, so I didn't have a segue.
No worries.
But for the next one, second to last question. This is a heavy hitting one. What does Star Wars mean to you?
Well, I think that Star Wars, like many things, like it's fun stories that you can escape into. It's a fun playground for storytellers to tell new stories. People that feel it has to be one thing because it means that one thing to them, I think it's a very small-minded mentality. Just because I like a fun, upbeat, like, you know, adventure story for Star Wars, and that's what makes my favorite Star Wars stuff, doesn't mean that's what Star Wars is. I think that you can make plenty of incredible stories in this world for a large variety of people with different tastes. And so long as the people behind it are making them for the right reasons, they're making them to make a fun story, that they have something to tell, something that they want to make in this world, as not made to, like, for some, like, numbers crunching, like, we need to get this much content out, and just, so long as it's not viewed as content and it's someone actually trying to make something that they care about, I think that good stuff will come out. And it won't necessarily be for everybody. Like, for instance, growing up, Clone Wars, a lot of people hated that, you know, because it was like, oh, it's a kid's show. It's a kid's show. But I was a kid, and I loved it. And I loved it. And the show grew up with me, you know. And as such, like, you know, I go back and I watch, and there's some episodes that are, you know, not the best. But that's with any television show. But if they were like, oh, we shouldn't make Clone Wars. We shouldn't make a Star Wars kids show. Star Wars is this one thing. Then that show I love wouldn't exist. So, you know, for instance, I don't like Rebels. I've tried to like Rebels.
Okay.
I don't care for it. But, you see, that's fine, because it's not for me. You know, I feel like it's the same situation. I'm not a kid anymore. And Rebels, to me, it strikes me as it's more for kids. And that's A-okay, because that's what Clone Wars was to me back when I was a kid. So to people who get mad, frustrated because, oh, this Star Wars project isn't what I like, Andor's too serious, and Star Wars needs more silly, or this new Skeleton Crew thing, it looks like it's some kid shows, it's like Goonies. To that I say, give it a chance. It might not be for you, but so long as the people making it genuinely are trying to make something fun, they're generally trying to make something good, and they're not just trying to, like, you know, just make it to make it, like I feel like some Marvel projects are these days. So long as it's actually something with some heart to it, then, and enough people like it, then I think that it's a fun world for people to escape in with great stories, and it's a great sandbox for filmmakers to tell their own stories. So that's what Star Wars is to me, I guess. It's a fun place for people to tell new stories, and that hopefully there's people out there that enjoy them.
That is a fantastic answer. Like, I want to give you props. You said so many things that, like, we agree with on the show. There's so much divisiveness in this Star Wars fandom right now. Everybody wants to be right. Like, I am right, this show is bad, or what have you. And really, it's just, if it doesn't hit for you, that doesn't mean it's bad. It just didn't hit for you. It's kind of like you said, I'm not the biggest Andor fan. Mm-hmm. I like my Star Wars to be a little less depressing, but I will admit, the show's really well made, incredibly well made. I just don't really like things about it, but it's fine.
And, like, nothing's perfect, but there are certain projects and certain things that just won't be made for everybody. Because I feel like there's this unfortunate thing that's happening. It's not just Star Wars; it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Where there's this mentality, and unfortunately, it's being adopted by a lot of companies, that everything needs to be made to be palatable to the widest amount of people so that everyone can enjoy it. And so as a result, things are going to get more and more generic, less of a distinct flavor, and as a result, it's just going to become less good, and people are going to be like, oh, rather than having the highs of people that love it, and those people that just it wasn't made for, it's just going to be, everyone's going to be like, it was all right, and that's going to just, everything will just even out to that. But there's so many people that feel like everything's made for them because there's this, algorithms and this and that, and all these streaming services that are pushing certain content to people, and it's just but people seem to get almost insulted when something seems like it wasn't made for them, like this entitlement that everything needs to be made for you and that you need to like it, when there's so many different tastes and so many different people out there. You're not going to like everything, and that should be okay, because if Star Wars back in the 70s was made to be loved by absolutely everybody when he was making it, when George and everyone else was making it, it was a weird thing when they were working on Star Wars. They didn't think it was going to succeed because it was so out there, so weird for the time. And if instead he was like, you know what, no, let's take a step back. Let's make this as palatable for as many people as possible, mentally, purposefully go out of our way to make it so that as many people as possible will like this, it would have been this bogged down, generic, schlocky 1970s thing that we would have all forgotten. It would have come out, it would have come and gone like a million other movies that there have been. And it's the things that are new and different and that really push the envelope, and that sometimes it won't attract everybody. Sometimes you'll just get a small, very active fan base. And some people will not like it, not understand why you like it. But if people remember back in the day, nerdy stuff used to be bullied.
Yes.
Because people didn't get it. Because it was different. Popular culture has now just, absorbed all of these things, and people have kind of forgotten about that. But there used to be bubbles of things that people like. And now everyone thinks we're all just supposed to like everything. And as a result, get angry when, why don't I like this? I should like this. They should be making this for me. And it's like, that's not how it works. And when they try to make it work like that, you're going to get garbage. So that's something I've been seeing a lot.
Yeah.
Like the target demo for things is like, well, let's just try to get everybody. Or when it's not for everybody, people get angry, and it's frustrating to see, especially as someone who works and makes things.
Well, and it's worth bringing up that people forget, but back in our day, it was not cool to be a nerd.
No,
I
it was
remember
not.
it was random, and it was like finding treasure on the beach. When you'd meet another person in real life that was also nerdy, it was like, one of us. It didn't really happen very often.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
all right. So, speaking of not being cool to be nerdy, the time has come for the ridiculous Rathtar random hard trivia question. This is preposterous. It is purposely weird. I'm gonna give you a weird one.
Okay.
It is Dark Empire related.
All right. We'll see.
And there are no losers to this question, because it's either you got it and it's like, congratulations, you have a
Or you didn't.
wild level of Star Wars knowledge, nerd cred kept, or you don't get it and congratulations, you have a life. Well done. So I debated, and so I wanted to, this is a somewhat of a behind the scenes question about Dark Empire.
Well, we'll see then. I don't know.
So, and it might be too weird, but here we go.
That's fine. I
So
We'll see.
this is true. The storyline of Dark Empire is one of the few things in the old expanded universe that George Lucas himself signed off on. He was like, that sounds good. There was a different story originally that he vetoed. Do you know what that was?
Ooh. Oh. You see, I vaguely remember George having some pitches for what could happen after the original trilogy. Something about the microscopic world or whatever, but I might be misremembering.
Oh, well, this was back in the 90s. This was purely about the Dark Empire comic.
Ooh, I don't know if I know this one. Because I remember vaguely something somewhere. This could be rumor about George wanted to do some kind of sequel that takes place in the microscopic world involving the midichlorians, but I think that's a different thing. Because that would have been a trip.
That was in, well, everybody says they should have used George's ideas for the sequels.
Yeah,
that was
so
his
George
idea.
wanted to do with Osmosis Jones, guys. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
That was in his pitch for the sequels. It was going to be about the midichlorians. We were going to go into the subatomic universe, and it was going to delve into whether or not free will exists.
Yeah, like,
and it's like,
Osmosis
what?
Jones.
But
I don't think I know this one.
That's okay. It's okay.
Well,
real
what
life
is it?
cred kept. So, Palpatine being a clone, George Lucas was like, great, that's fine. What he wasn't cool with, their original pitch for this comic book was that the Empire was going to send out, they were going to like hire someone, they were going to send out a goon wearing a replica of Vader's suit to try and have the people of the galaxy believe that Darth Vader never died. And George was like, no, and that we can't do that. And they were like, well, what if we clone Palpatine? And he was like, that's fine. So all the people that get mad that Palpatine got cloned, George Lucas himself. George Lucas himself was cool with it. Yeah. So anyway, there you go. That was my ridiculous Rathtar question.
I had never heard that before. That's certainly like
yeah.
A guy going around in a Vader suit. I've
Yes.
heard like cloning Palpatine's a little more fun.
Yeah.
Because it's a little bit more out there and like macabre, weird science.
Yeah.
Some guy just in a Vader suit cosplaying is interesting, but I feel like I feel like the current Marvel Comics run could do that story, and then Vader just shows up and kicks his ass.
That would be kind of cool.
Like,
That's
I wouldn't be surprised
story.
if they did that. That sounds like one of the kind of things they do. Like, I feel like there was an issue where Vader's going around killing anyone who claims to be Luke Skywalker or whatever.
Yes. Yeah, I read that one. I don't remember which run that was in, but that did happen.
Yeah, that might have been like now a while ago, but I think I was like part of that run. But yeah, like some guy running around in a Vader suit, using it to intimidate people and get free drinks at bars. I wouldn't be surprised.
That's kind of funny. I'm now imagining someone in a Vader costume
Got a
winning an
straw going up into the breather.
and Darth Vader Prime walks in and kills him. But okay, man. Thank you very much for coming on the show. This was awesome. You are a content generator, dropping just all kinds of knowledge and good quotes.
Oh yeah, Star Wars was like my jam for it was like honed in on that for a very long time.
Yeah. Well, and then if you're most of us, we never stopped honing in on it. I am still honed in.
Oh yeah.
But,
now I'm definitely doing a little bit more of my own stuff now.
Cool.
But yeah, right now I'm working on the sensational Catman animated movie, which is going to be coming out this summer. If you were curious about that, be sure to check out my YouTube channel. The trailer's up on there. But yeah, no, classic cartoon style about feline-themed superhero. It's very fun, very goofy.
Well, and yeah, let them know where can the people find you on the internet.
Spiky Tortoise YouTube channel. So that's Spiky with an EY Tortoise YouTube channel. That's also where you can watch the Dark Empire animated movie, where I took all the finished chunks of Dark Empire that I've been working on over the years and kind of cobbled it together into like what I call the movie, even though technically it's not the full story. But yeah, it's like it's an homage to the amount of hours I put into that thing, because that was a long period of time for me.
It is well worth the hours. Seriously, I absolutely love that fan film. It is probably my favorite way to consume the first couple issues of Dark Empire now. So congratulations. Speaking for this podcast, we love it.
Well, I'm glad you guys love it. Unfortunately, there are some people out there who do not. But some people just hate whenever you change anything about stuff. Because I did do a few things too that are not the exact copy of the comic. I changed a few things. I pulled Palpatine's design from Rise of Skywalker because I thought it was the one thing about that movie that I was like, that's cool. So I pulled that, and then people were like, I don't want to be reminded of that movie at all, and then got very angry, and I got a lot of hate mail and some death threats, and I was like, you guys are pushing things a little too far here.
Oh my gosh, you got death threats for that?
Yeah, I know, right? Like, people are kind of crazy about stuff. It's like, I'm making this for fun, man.
That's the thing, man. We talk about people taking too much possession of these stories. It's like, guys, don't be a Sith, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't Sith deal in absolutes. Don't be a turd. It's anyway. Sorry.
No worries, no worries. No, but like there was also thankfully a lot of optimism, a lot of people that have enjoyed it, so that's great. Unfortunately, it cost me a lot of money to make, so that's why I'm going to have to put it on the back burner until God knows when I'll be able to ever get back to it. But it really, like, I wish I'd started it when I started university, not in my last year. There would be better odds of me actually finishing it had I done that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, animation is a very time-consuming thing. So unfortunately, I'm not able to devote the time I used to it anymore. But for what it was a lot of fun. I definitely learned a lot making it. And by watching it, you'll see it changed dramatically in style throughout as I learned new things and try new stuff.
That was one of the things that I kind of liked about it. You could see that over the years, your skill as an animator had improved, and then by the end, it's stunning at the beginning, and then at the end, I was just like the Palpatine scene. It looks phenomenal.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. All that to say, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, no, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna wrap up, but if you got something else,
sorry.
hit him. Yeah, no, you're good. Go ahead.
But yeah, no, like I learned so much working on that project, and throughout the whole thing, I always wanted to just circle back and redo the first episode with the new skills I'd learned, but I was like, I will never finish this ever or make any progress if I keep on circling back and redoing episode 1, because I'd already restarted it like 3 times. And I have the whole animatic done for the 3rd episode, technically. I've already posted it online to just show people, like, hey, I finished the animatic for this thing. And I paid for 3D models and rigs to be done. I've done some backgrounds and environments and stuff. I sank thousands of dollars into making this whole thing. And then I just reached a kind of dead end where I was just like, I don't think I can keep on going with this. It's such a huge time sink. And I need to work on some stuff that makes money, unfortunately. Life.
Yeah.
And if I do have free time, if it's a choice between like an original thing, like a brand new story like the Catman Project, or something that is, even though Star Wars is really fun, it's still a derivative of an existing comic book. It's not a new story. I'm not working with another person who wants to bring the story to life. It already exists. It's harder to justify. So maybe someday in the distant future, I think the dream for me is that I have infinite time, and that some Star Wars fan is like, hey, I also have infinite time, and I'm a storyteller, and I want to make my own little Star Wars thing, and that together we make some 15-minute long, fun little animated thing. Not this massive, like, hey, this is going to be a 5-hour-long project. It's going to be but that sounds like a retirement project to me, just to indulge in my Star Wars fandom.
Well, if we get to the point as a podcast, I'll throw the hammer down now. I would be happy to do that with an animator as talented as you. But all that to say, sincerely thank you for coming on the show, and all of our listeners. There are not a lot of you right now, but go to the Spiky Tortoise YouTube channel and bring a friend, and subscribe, do all those things. Ian makes good stuff. Go watch that good stuff. Whether you have or have not read Dark Empire, you have no excuse to not go watch this fan film. It is super cool. But without further ado, so you said Catman comes out this summer?
It should come out this summer. Something catastrophic would have to go wrong for it not to, frankly. It's going to be 40-ish minutes long, and I am right now finished more than 30 minutes of it.
Nice.
And I started animating it in April, so cool. With that turnaround time, I should absolutely have the remaining 10 minutes done by then, and then the guy making it with Austin McConnell, he should be done the audio and all that stuff with the music, the sound effects, all that stuff to get it totally finished. And that's also the time that we told our Kickstarter backers it needs to be done by. And I feel like it's very important to stick to your word with these things. So if we told them June, hell or high water, I want that thing done by June. I'd have to break both my arms for that not to happen.
Well, we will check it out when Sensational Catman drops.
Thank you.
And absolutely, dude. Without further ado, thanks for coming on the show. I'm going to throw it back to me and Zach for our celebration of 5 years of Star Wars streaming. And we're back. And it is a time for celebration of 5 years of Star Wars streaming. 5 years of live-action Star Wars television, which is still wild to think. I remember being, in 2005, being like 16 years old and hearing that there was a Star Wars television show on the way that, of course, ended up being Star Wars Underworld, and it ended up not happening.
Mm-hmm.
But many, many years later, we finally got this, and we got The Mandalorian, and especially that first season truly blew me away.
Yeah.
In a minute, we're going to rank our top 5 episodes of live-action streaming. But before we do that, just real quick, kind of off the cuff, Zach, do you remember your reactions to the first season of The Mandalorian or the first episode of The Mandalorian?
Yeah, I remember watching that first episode of The Mandalorian and just being like, holy crap. Like, they can do this level of quality on a TV show? 'Cause, like, you gotta think about that first episode. It starts on the ice planet. And
Yeah.
I remember they were like, oh yeah, we have this like volume. It's really cool, and it's gonna make things like actually look real. And the actors don't have to act against a green screen; they can actually see the things, which amazing. But I remember watching that first episode and being like, holy moly, this thing looks amazing. You know, you had the big monster coming up to eat the Razor Crest.
Yeah.
You had him getting to that planet, Navarro, and, you know, Grogu at the end of it. And I remember Grogu at the end, I was like, I just gobsmacked. You know, I was like, what? They are doing a Yoda baby? What do you mean? How? What? Like, all the questions.
Well, and that... Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, and like that, the fight scene right before that with the IG unit and all that. That first episode is so well done, and the first season has its ups and downs, but man, they came out guns a-blazing.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say that watching the episode right as it premiered, I don't remember if you got to do that, but we were among the few people that were surprised by Baby Yoda. Because credit where credit's due, just the weird, the typical way of doing things, that they didn't merchandise Grogu to death before that show premiered, right? Because they kept it a secret. And just being surprised, like, what? And I remember watching that episode with my wife, and she's going, all right, you know, Star Wars, it's my thing, and, you know, and when it's super bro and stuff, she's like, okay, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then Baby Yoda showed up, and she was like, okay, I'm sorry. We are watching this show now. And I was like, yes! So, you know, Baby Yoda works for everybody.
Yeah.
But, okay. Well, before we get into the live action streaming stuff, do you want to, because we've also had lots of top quality animation come out over this little bit. What's your standout from the animation streaming stuff?
We were debating on whether or not this top 5 should be animated and live action. We made it do live action just because it was a little bit more succinct. And I told Matt, I was like, it's hard to do animation because it's just banger after banger after banger, you know? But some of my like honorable mentions from animation, number 5 for me was going to be Episode 5 of Star Wars Visions, which is the Ninth Jedi, which is that Visions, if you have not seen it, go watch it right now. It's wonderful. They went out to a bunch of, the first season is all Japanese animators, and they said, just make a Star Wars, whatever you want. Do whatever you want. You get an episode. And that whole season's great, but that 5th episode is my favorite. It's about this lightsaber smith, and she, you know, is going amongst the galaxy and gets picked up by these Jedi, but then you realize that they're not Jedi, they're all Sith. And I was like, I remember finishing that episode going, okay, but where's the next one? I want to continue. Like, why is this just one episode? Have to shout out the entirety of Tales of the Jedi and Tales of the Empire because they're perfect. I also had Star Wars, The Clone Wars Season 7, Victory in Death. That last episode there's just so much good animation that's come out. So, yeah. You have any animation honorable mentions?
Yeah, just in general, the Siege of Mandalore, those 4 episodes, that is one of my favorite Star Wars things. It's one of my favorite Star Wars movies. I think of it as a movie. It's
almost perfect.
Yeah, I mean, like, just the opening sequence alone of Obi-Wan is okay, but Anakin's better. Anakin saves him. Luke Skywalker walks towards all of the droids, right? And then it's all a Return of the Jedi style trap with Rex and everybody and all the other clones. Everybody is functioning at 100%.
Yeah.
Everything's fine. And then you watch them leave to go to episode 3, and you know everything's going to fall apart. It's just exceptional.
Yeah.
Really, that first episode of the Siege of Mandalore is one of my favorite Clone Wars episodes, period. Mostly because of that opening sequence and then everything else that happens. But then my favorite, in many ways, my favorite thing to come from Disney streaming, if I'm honest with myself, is the Tales of the Jedi episode, The Sith Lord. The Dooku episode.
Yeah.
It's my favorite because if I was to tell you that the moment that Count Dooku fell to the dark side was in a lightsaber duel with Yaddle, I would laugh at you. But that episode is so good. Just when it opens with Dooku deleting Kamino from the archives, it was one of those that I Ewok bowed to the television and to Dave Filoni. I was just like, you are the man. Well done. Thank you for finally doing this. And I really, really like but just that whole episode's phenomenal. Yeah. And I really like the Ahsoka finale as well, the Resolve, the one we talked about earlier. That conversation between Bail Organa and Ahsoka it's just great. Mm-hmm. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
And in many ways, we will never get it. We probably should never get it. But now that there aren't a lot of gaps left in Ahsoka's story, I would love a comic book series of Ahsoka Tano Fulcrum.
Yeah.
Just a couple of random adventures of her doing, I guess, French Revolution style
intelligence
insurrectionist
gathering,
things.
yeah.
Intelligence gathering, just random adventures against the Empire in the dark times, where she's basically alone. But anyway, all that's enough about animation. Let's get into live action. Let's get into real people. So, our top 5 live action streaming episodes. I've got 5. Zach's got 5. I have 2 honorable mentions that I'll say before the last one.
Have 1 honorable mention.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. But all right, hit us with your number 5.
Yeah. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. Okay. My number 5 is Mando Chapter 16, the finale of Season 2.
Ooh, yes.
With Luke coming back, and, seeing Luke full Jedi out, against those droids. But really for the emotional moment of Din taking off his helmet, just so his son can see his face. That episode is, I remember just the hype, because we didn't know Luke was coming back. I watched it the night it came out. I was not spoiled. I was very lucky, and I was just seeing, the green lightsaber went on, and I was like, because they say an X-Wing is coming, and you're like, okay, are they gonna do it? And then you see the green lightsaber, and you're like, oh my god, they're doing it. But yeah, that's my number 5. What's your number 5?
Yeah. So my number 5 might be spicy because dare I mention this show, The Acolyte episode 5, Night.
Yes.
That just top to bottom is that's the prime choice, grade A Star Wars goodness. Mm-hmm. Cortosis? Live action Cortosis? Are you kidding me? Like, haters gonna hate. Even all of the grifters were very, very quiet after that week because even they were going, that was actually pretty cool. Then I saw weird people complaining about how it looked like a fan film, and I was like, get out of here with that. It was awesome. I absolutely loved it, and it is the source of my crush on the Stranger.
Those arms.
I want more Stranger content, man.
Yeah.
I want to know his deal. I'm going to say it right now. I have a pitch basically ready to go for my pitch for the Acolyte Season 2. So let's work on some pitches, and then we'll see if we can do something fun.
Yeah.
But I know what I would do with that story, which are so, for me, it's headcanon. But I loved that episode, everything about it, that it was so visceral and so heavy. People died. I don't want people to die, but it's definitely frightening and investing when it happens. So it might be my favorite lightsaber action in the Disney era.
Yeah.
Basically that whole episode.
Mm-hmm.
Or, well, that's ridiculous to say. It's definitely up there. It's in the conversation.
Yeah.
That's what I will say.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Zach, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is The Acolyte, Episode 5, Night.
Nice. All right, so your turn.
I totally agree. I mean, this episode is fantastic. So when I was making this list, the thing I was looking up earlier is I have a lot of Episode 5s on my list.
That's cool.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, is this a Disney era thing? So that's why I was looking up. I was like, oh, I wonder if the May 4th episode of Andor is their 5th episode, and it's going to be a really great episode. So I have a new theory after analyzing it, that you got to give a Star Wars show 5 episodes, because usually the 5th one is holy moly. Because the Acolyte Episode 5 Night is, I think, also one of my favorite lightsaber battles in the Disney era. Everybody is moving. You got excellent light play. You got a Sith kebab. You got 3-hole punch Jekki. You got the Yord Ord. You got, excellent character beats from every single character in that episode. You have Osha and May trying to figure out whether they should run, whether they should stay and save each other. You have Soul trying to figure out who the heck this guy is, which, looking back at it, Soul probably knew. Oh no, he doesn't know who the stranger is. But it's weird that he's so close to Venestra and doesn't know him, or doesn't remember him. But yeah, excellent everything: directing, lighting, scare factor, lightsaber battles, character moments. It has everything. That episode is, one of my favorite things to come out of Star Wars this year. Or, honestly, past 5 years. It's really good. Renew the Acolyte.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. I don't think they're going to, but I would love for them to.
No.
So, renew the Acolyte in our hearts.
But yeah, I'm also, give me more Chimera content. Yeah. So, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is bouncing back to Mando Season 2. Spoilers, there's a lot of Mando Season 2 on my list. But this is the penultimate episode of Mando Season 2. This is The Believer. This is the one where, oh my gosh, I forgot the comedian's name.
Bobby Moynihan.
No. Oh my gosh. Boston guy, really loud and obnoxious.
Bill Burr. Yeah.
This is the great episode with
really
Bill
good.
Burr, his character Miggs Mayfeld, having basically a crisis of conscience and choosing to... at the beginning of the episode, he is a doubter. He makes fun of Mando for his creed. He makes fun of any type of revolutionary or any type of rebels for really taking up arms against anything. And then by the end of the episode, he has decided that he is also basically a rebel. I maintain that he was going to come back for the Rangers of the New Republic show, and then everything happened with Gina Carano, and they nuked those plans.
Yeah.
I would love to see his character come back. I really, really liked. I think, oddly enough, weirdly, Bill Burr fits the Star Wars vibe.
Yeah.
Very well.
Surprisingly.
And I thought that he crushed this episode. I don't really have anything other to say other than just that, yes, top to bottom, it's a really, really, really good self-contained Star Wars time.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Nice.
That's my number 4.
I forgot
The
about that
Believer.
episode. That's great.
Oh, it's good. It's good.
All right, moving on to number 3. I have another episode 5. Ahsoka, episode 5, Shadow Warriors.
Oh, yes. I thought about this one. Go ahead.
Oh, so good. I mean, this is the episode where Ahsoka is dead, enters the world between worlds, and you get Hayden Christensen's best acting. period. He is so good in this episode. She is so good in this episode. You get canonization and like full on just like solid proof that like the Clone Wars cartoon show is canon. You know, like, because sometimes people would debate it, but it's like, hey, no, look, he's literally in the armor from the Clone Wars. You get the Siege of Mandalore. You get Rex. You get that moment where Anakin like he like does a shoulder thing, becomes Vader, and then like shakes it off, and like he has the Sith eyes, and then they turn to blue. Like, there's so many good things in that episode, and it is so good. But yeah, that's my number 3.
Love it. That's a fantastic episode. Just for the moment alone of Ahsoka saying, "I'm not going to fight you," and he's like, "I've heard that before," and I was like, "That's good. That's good writing." Mm-hmm. You know, I won't even explain it for those of you that don't get it. Go watch Return of the Jedi again. But yeah, just for the moment of Anakin Skywalker getting to teach Ahsoka one more lesson.
Yeah,
it's good. It's good stuff. Okay, so sticking with Mandalorian season 2 for my number 3, the finale of Mando season 2, The Rescue.
Yeah,
this is our this is my turn to take one and also have one on my list. Yeah, just top to bottom. Just if you want to have, if I got 45 minutes to kill, I don't even think it's that long. Put on The Rescue. Just top to bottom, it's a full Star Wars meal. There's so much going on. Just the first scene. I remember just like, I think I just smiled and shook my head like this when side by side Boba Fett and Din Djarin walked into the bar and just like with their helmets on and scanned the room. I was just like, let's go. We didn't know how good we had it, kids. And just if you could tell 16-year-old me that, okay, so the Boba Fett show, Star Wars Underworld, isn't going to happen, but just wait on, about almost 15 years or so, and then you're going to have another cool Mandalorian, and he's going to go on adventures with Boba Fett. And I'd be like, oh, okay. I also wouldn't believe it. What's streaming? But, yeah, and then not even to mention that Luke Skywalker shows up. Yes. Yeah, don't miss that one, Nate. That'd be bad. That he shows up, and I am going to mention it. This was a weird experience for me because Star Wars Twitter is not always positive.
Yeah.
But when this episode dropped, and I was over the moon because it was Luke Skywalker being heroic, as he would be, all of the discourse online was negative. Every single thing I saw was complaining that, quote-unquote, Din's character arc got pushed to the side.
Yeah.
So that, quote-unquote, nostalgia man could show up and rescue him. And then it devolved into the typical Last Jedi discourse of people complaining about how, like, this is who Luke is. This isn't who Luke is. You didn't watch The Last Jedi, blah, blah, blah. And I was sitting here going, my favorite character of all time has become a lightning rod for argument and confusion. It's weird.
Yeah.
So I wanted to say that because I think it's just worth mentioning. At the end of the day, Luke Skywalker can have a crisis of faith, whether I like it or not, in The Last Jedi, and also be the hero that we know him to be. And that can be in the same human being, because that's how humans work.
Yeah.
But all that to say, everything you mentioned and more, I love every single moment in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I will also say, you kind of hinted it earlier, I got spoiled for this.
Oh, no.
I won't name the friend, but he knows who he is. I'm an early riser. I'm old now, and most days I'm awake at like 6:30 at the latest, right? So I'm never awake to watch these things because back in the day they would premiere at like midnight, right? When this came out, I was up at 5 to watch it, and I think I didn't get to push play till 6, but at 5 a.m. I got a text from a friend because he thought that I would have watched it by then. That was, quote, Luke Skywalker, and all these exclamation points. And I was like, and it was as I was going to push play, and I was like, are you joking? So I thought, I was like, there's no way that I just got spoiled on the return of my favorite character of all time. And I did. And so then when the X-Wing showed up and they're like, 1 X-Wing, we're saved. I was like, this would be really great if I didn't know this was coming.
Yeah.
But all that to say, it's still a fantastic moment. I've talked about it enough. Zach, what is your number 2?
Yeah, my number 2 is one that will not be on Matt Boitner's list. Andor, episode 10, One Way Out.
Interesting.
This episode, I think, is great from a character perspective. You know, you get one of the greatest Andy Serkis performances where he's actually himself. You know, and the one way out, you know, beautiful moments in it, you know, when he is like, I can't swim. You know, he does all this stuff to get off the thing, and then he can't leave because he can't swim. Just heartbreaking. But the real reason this is on my top 5 is because at the end of that episode, you get one of the best monologues in Star Wars, period. Which is Stellan Skarsgård meeting with his ISB informant, and he's like, what have you given up? And he's like, what have I given up? I've given up not seeing not seeing the sun. And just that entire monologue, I remember watching it and being so flabbergasted at how good it was. I finished the episode, I paused, I rewind it, and immediately press play, press pause, and wrote down the monologue. I have it in my phone because I was like, this is too good to not just like have, you know. But so one day I'll do a dramatic reading of it. It's in here somewhere. But that monologue is amazing.
Fun fact, and I've been critical of that show, it's one of my honorable mentions, that episode specifically, but we'll get there.
Yeah. All right, well, what's your number 2?
So my number 2 is, again, sticking with Mando Season 2, which I didn't realize was this much of so many of my favorite things, but the Season 2 premiere, The Marshal.
Oh, really?
I love
that is a really good
episode. It's so strong.
Yeah.
It's just good old school cinema. Just that they canonized Cobb Vanth.
Yeah.
Which is such a deep pull from the Aftermath books, and that he's so much cooler than I ever could have imagined.
Well,
it was awesome.
That's partially due to the actor that they got, who's amazing.
Everything about Timothy Oliphant, just the writing for Cobb Vanth, the look of Cobb Vanth, just everything about it. It's just, it all works. It is flawless in my opinion.
Yeah.
The portrayal of that character, but just in general, that it's this classic fantasy story of the village coming together to defeat a dragon, but it's a crate dragon, and it's that Dune was getting ready to come out, and they were like, you know what? I mean, let's just steer into the skid. We know Star Wars is Dune if it was fun. Right?
Yeah.
Let's just make a crate dragon basically a sandworm, that it moves underneath the sand.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fantastic. The moment where the crate dragon appears for the first time and the aspect ratio of the screen changes and your screen widens out to give you that full image, I basically slow clapped at my television. I was just like, this is classic monster movie filmmaking. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
I love that episode. So I don't have any critiques. I just love it. Everything about it rocks. So before we get to our number 1s, Zach, what's your honorable mention?
No, I realize I have 2.
Cool.
So the first one is another episode 5 of Obi-Wan of the Kenobi show. It's the one where Reva and Darth Vader have that lightsaber fight, and I just remember being like, oh my god. Again, it's the same thing as the Darth Vader hallway scene. Just to see Darth Vader like fully just like when he like stops her blade with the Force and like doesn't even have to pull out the lightsaber and then ends up with 2 of them, like, oh, so good. I will also kind of honorable mention the end of that episode, the next episode on that one as well, episode 6, where you get the full Obi-Wan and Vader, and Vader going, I'm not your, like, you didn't do this to me, I did this to me. But my other honorable mention is from Book of Boba Fett, It's either episode 5 or episode 6, but it's where you get Luke Skywalker fully like deep faked out the wazoo, and you get the excellent moment of Grogu trying to choose, and you get Ahsoka in there, and she's like, just like your father. I can't. Is that 5 or 6? Do you remember?
That's if I remember right, it's the penultimate episode.
Yeah.
It's weird that it's the penultimate episode because it's not about the story. But anyway.
And I think you also get Cad Bane in that one as well.
You do. That's the one where he guns down Cobb Vanth.
Yeah. Just great episode, That show also had its problems, but some highs and lows. What are your honorable mentions?
So my honorable mentions, I'd said this before, One Way Out. For all of my Andor whinies, my biggest thing, it boils down to that the show, just for me, I like my Star Wars when it has stakes. And Andor, it's just stylistically different. It is a slow burn. It is a slow drive on a Sunday afternoon to get to things, right? And the one episode that felt different, that felt like it had teeth, was One Way Out. Mm-hmm. And it was hitting for me, and the emotions are there, and the stakes are there, and I absolutely loved it. And yeah, the moment of I can't swim, I was like, good stuff. My other honorable mention is the live-action debut of Ahsoka Tano, The Jedi, again, from Mandalorian Season 2. I didn't realize that I loved that season as much as I do until I was looking at this list, and I was like, oh, man. Yeah. But I love that episode is just pure archetypal Star Wars. There's bad people that are doing bad things to that are oppressing people that can't protect themselves. So we're gonna go do it, and we're gonna do it it's gonna climax in a fight of Dave Filoni showing you both of Star Wars' primary influences simultaneously. Yeah. That Ahsoka Tano is having a lightsaber duel, and Din Djarin is having a Western shootout. Yeah. It's perfection. Mm-hmm. I adore that episode. And then I remember, because it premiered, I think, the day after Christmas, or around then. I remember my family was home, and we were all together, and we all watched it the next morning. And I remember then at the end of the episode when she's like, where is your master? Where is Grand Admiral Thrawn? I screamed. And my whole family looked at me like, what are you? And I was like, you don't even know. You don't even know. Anyway, so yeah, The Jedi and One Way Out are my honorable mentions. So Zach, what is your number one?
The number one, I already kind of talked about it, but it is the first episode of The Mandalorian.
Wow, cool.
That episode is perfect to me. Yeah. It sets up so much. It has so little dialogue when you look back at it. But I mean, you got I have spoken. You have This is the Way. You have Mandalorian culture being built. You have so many different things that it just it is such good, succinct storytelling. You don't have to question anything. You don't have to you have questions that are raised, but it's okay, this is cinematically perfect. It from top to bottom. It's one of my favorite episodes of Star Wars, period. So. But yeah.
Right on.
What about
Agreed. You? So, this is going to baffle you.
Andor Season 2 finale.
No. But so my number one is from what is probably the worst Star Wars streaming show, but we have also talked about it. My number one is from Book of Boba Fett. From the Desert Comes a Stranger. Yeah. It's the episode we talked about, the one where Cobb Vanth gets gunned down, where you see Grogu training with Luke Skywalker. You just get every single scene for me in that episode is phenomenal. Yeah. You get Din talking to R2, annoyed that he won't answer his questions and tell him where Baby Yoda is, and you're watching R2 assemble this squad of ant droids to build the Jedi Temple that we then see destroyed in The Force Awakens for the first time in a flashback, right? And that it's a temple that looks like ant mounds. So Dave Filoni invented ant droids that are building it. I love seeing. Everybody gets mad. Fine, haters gonna hate. I want more of the deepfake Luke Skywalker when he first appeared and it looked like Mark Hamill from 1983. I gasped, and I'm pretty sure I cried because it played for me. And then, and there's moments where you can tell they have to do certain vowels more than others because the face can only make so many shapes. But Hamill read for the lines. He did, and he had to keep it kind of flat.
Well, he read for the lines, and then they used a technology.
Respeecher. Yeah, to play it up and stuff. But I loved it. It played for me. I would like more of that. Yes, also hire actors for sure. But I thought it was awesome. Every single moment was great. The only exception, I understand why they had to do this in canon because of where Luke's story goes, but I didn't really like him making Grogu choose.
Yeah.
While it was a cool mythical moment that plays and that gives you clear stakes. Again, I've said this in the show before, in my interpretation of Luke Skywalker, his attachment to his father, literally his attachment to his father, saved Star Wars. So you would think that he would see the value in Grogu being attached to his father.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand why they couldn't go that way because of what happens in Last Jedi. The canon Luke Skywalker gets caught up in the attachment of it all.
Yeah.
Right? And that's fine. You're going to keep it consistent because we are telling one story. But just in general, I bumped up against that. But I said that, and then it's not even to mention the scene where Cobb Vanth gets gunned down is so good.
Yeah,
it is directed so well, and it's set up fantastically. That at the beginning of the episode, Cobb Vanth guns down like 6 pikes. Yeah, there's one left. And he's like, think it through. You've established that he's the fastest gun in the universe, and the only reason he gets gunned down by Cad Bane is because that stupid deputy is trying to get involved, and they're closing in on their eyes, and Cobb Vanth looks to the deputy, and in that one moment, that's when Cad Bane draws and shoots them both down.
Yeah.
So anyway, one of the worst Star Wars shows, but easily my favorite, just my favorite hour of Star Wars television, just for me. So, we have our types. I clearly have a Mandalorian bias, unintentional. Ahsoka episodes were close, and who knows? Maybe I'll rewatch them.
Not even an honorable mention for Ahsoka. I'm surprised.
I love the story that it told, but the show was a little clunky for me a lot of the time. So just when I was looking at episodes just purely by themselves, these episodes rose to the top.
Yeah,
Ahsoka's probably my favorite show overall, but individual episodes, these were my favorite. These are the ones that I keep going back to.
Nice.
So, okay, so we did it. 5 years of Star Wars streaming have come and gone. We'll be here for the next 5 and more so is the plan. And then we'll do another list, and we'll see where we're at after another half decade. But, so, Zach?
Yeah.
Where can the people find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Zachisfaction on Instagram, TikTok, basically anywhere. But the best way to actually get to me is to email our show, forceofothersradio@gmail.com. Send us your questions. We will, when we have time, put them on the show and answer them. We have a bunch in the queue right now that I'm actually very excited for. So yeah, that's the best way to find me. Where can they find you, Matt?
You have Facebook and Instagram, Matt Beutner, Beutner. I'm also on Twitter, just rarely, but you can interact with me, the Force of Others, on Twitter and on YouTube comments, where sometimes I'll come after you if you're being a douchebag. But all people are welcome. Just be respectful. So, but speaking of being respectful, we're gonna not respectfully watch the worst Star Wars movie next week. We've talked about it before.
Yeah,
it's happening. Oof. Next Monday, we are recording our first commentary track for the podcast on the day it premiered in 1976. So this will be almost 50 years later. Good Lord.
Yeah.
We're going to watch the Star Wars Holiday Special. So you can watch it along with us if you want to torture yourself. We'll see how hysterical we are by the end of it. Yeah. But that is going to be the kickoff of our holiday festivities for the next little bit, and then we're diving into Skeleton Crew. Skeleton Crew premieres in 3 weeks.
Woo-woo.
Let's go. And without further ado, remember that freedom is a pure idea, and try to look out for other people in your life in this next week. But all that to say, and remember, the force of others will be with you.
Always. Many. The Force of Others, a Star Wars podcast.